I never thought I'd find myself in a place like Aokigahara Forest. Until last week, I hadn't even heard of it. Japan had always been on my bucket list. The food, the culture, the serene countryside. My best friend Mark and I shared that dream. And when we finally had the chance to visit, we didn't hesitate. What we didn't know was how dark our adventure would turn. Mark and I had been best friends since childhood. He was the fearless one, always chasing thrills, while I was the planner, the cautious one. Camping near Mount Fuji seemed like the perfect mix of adventure and tranquility. Neither of us knew that the forest near our campsite carried a reputation as one of the most unsettling places on Earth. The beginning. The day started perfectly. Clear blue skies and the majestic view of Mount Fuji made it feel like we were stepping into a postcard. We set up camp near the edge of a wooded area, not far from a well-worn hiking trail. By mid-afternoon, Mark was already itching for adventure. "Come on," he said, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. "What's the point of camping if we don't explore a little?" I hesitated. The trees were packed unnaturally close together, their twisted roots jutting out like claws. Something about the forest made me uneasy, but Mark's excitement was contagious. "Fine," I said, grabbing my flashlight. "But let's not wander too far." Into the forest. The moment we stepped into the woods, the atmosphere changed. The dense canopy above blocked most of the sunlight, leaving the forest dim and foreboding even in the middle of the afternoon. There was no bird song, no buzzing insects, just a heavy, unsettling silence. "Kinda creepy, isn't it?" Mark joked, though I could tell even he was a little unnerved. About an hour into our walk, we noticed something strange. Ribbons tied to trees forming a trail. Some ribbons were bright and new, their colors vibrant against the dull forest. Others were old, frayed, barely clinging to the branches. "Maybe hikers left these to find their way back," Mark said. I nodded, but the sight of them unsettled me. It felt as though we were following something we shouldn't. The first signs. As the sun began to set, the forest grew darker. The silence became oppressive, and the air felt colder. That's when we found the first sign that something was wrong. A backpack, abandoned and half-buried under leaves. Beside it, a pair of shoes sat neatly side by side. "Maybe they got lost," Mark said, though his usual confidence was missing. We walked, finding abandoned items, a journal, water bottles, a photo of a smiling family. Unease grew. "This doesn't feel right," I said. "We should turn back." But the trail was gone. The forest swallowed it. "We'll figure it out," Mark said. Hours passed. The darkness deepened. Whispers surrounded us. "Did you hear that?" I asked, trembling. Mark shook his head, gripping the flashlight tighter. The whispers grew louder. The woman. Then we saw her. At first, I thought it was just another shadow, but as we moved closer, it became clear. A woman stood a few feet ahead, her back to us. She wore a tattered white dress, her long black hair hanging limp around her shoulders. "Hello," Mark called, his voice breaking the silence. She didn't respond. "Are you okay?" I added, though every instinct told me to run. Slowly, she turned to face us. Her eyes were empty black pits that seemed to absorb the light. Her lips moved silently, forming words we couldn't hear. Then she stepped toward us. "Run!" Mark shouted, grabbing my arm. We bolted, sprinting through the trees as the whispers turned into wails. They echoed all around us, a chorus of despair that pierced my ears. I didn't dare look back. The madness. We ran until we collapsed near the base of a massive tree, gasping for air. The wails continued, faint but persistent, as though they had followed us into our minds. "What was that?" Mark whispered, his face pale and drenched in sweat. "I don't know," I said, though deep down, I was certain we were not alone in the forest. The woods shifted as night went on. Shadows moved oddly and the air grew colder. Mark thought he saw figures watching us, but I only felt their presence. "We can't stay here," I said, unsure where to go. The shrine hours later, we found a clearing with black ribbons around trees, forming a circle around a wooden shrine covered in strange carvings. At its base, there were offerings, wilted flowers, coins, and human bones. "We need to leave," I whispered. Mark nodded, but before we could move, the air turned cold, and silence filled the space. She appeared, jerky, her mouth too wide. A scream pierced the air. "Run!" Mark yelled, grabbing my hand. We ran through the twisting forest, barely making it to the campfire. The next morning, Mark said, "That's Aokigahara. People go there to end things. Even now, I hear whispers in my dreams. Some places aren't meant to be explored."